I say what? Ho, Led Zeppelin fans, this is Brian, call me Cole Gardner, coming to you from Ice Station Zeppelin in scenic Hesper, Ontario. You are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode number 42, the only Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. You can listen to me, you can subscribe on iTunes, you can go to Podbean, look me up, you can go to Spreaker and listen to me there, and of course, SoundCloud. We're up on SoundCloud, and as well, the audio also goes to YouTube. Look for I Am Brian, damn it, on YouTube. And I finally got a little downtime, and I'm catching up on a million little jobs, not the least of which is shoveling the driveway. I'm going to try and get those YouTube stuff sorted out so that it all merges to the Ramble On Radio account, and la-di-da-da-da, or I can get it over there in a timely fashion thereafter or something. But anyway, that's, if you look for I Am Brian, damn it, it's on YouTube. Tell your friends, subscribe, post to the Facebook, write a review on iTunes, etc., etc. Looking forward to 2014. One of my resolutions is promote this thing, get this blog, get this podcast into the next level. Anyway, to the next. To promote it better. How's that? So good start. Hey. So the plan was I was going to do a Christmas Day. Well, I wasn't going to sit on Christmas Day and podcast, but I was going to do one for Christmas Day. Then I got a notice a couple days. If you're following me on Twitter, you'll know I got a notice a couple days before from iTunes saying basically they're doing system maintenance. There'll be nothing between the 24th and the 28th. So if I posted it, you wouldn't be hearing it anyway. Most of the people who listen to this listen to it on iTunes, as far as I can tell. So that's, so I said, well, then why, I'm busy. Why force myself to do something that, is not going to happen anyway. And then the plan was a January 1st one, but between, we had a big ice storm up here on like December 23rd, and while we were fine where I am, my wife's immediate family particularly got hit really hard with power outages for 3-4 days, 2 different families there. So we had a lot of people around. We threw a lot of dinners. Every Christmas dinner, there was Christmas Eve is kind of a traditional. It got bigger than normal because people came from out of town that don't normally. Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Through a dinner. Plus, we had a big New Year's dinner, and the New Year's dinner you can see. I'm if you follow me on Facebook, you know the picture. I was dressed to the nines, 1920s style, and I don't mean gangster. I mean white tie. And I'm using that as my podcast picture today. So you'll see it. You just look at on your phone or whatever, and you'll see the picture. But in between, it was 2 days of cooking. So I just kind of thought, you know what, I'm take the whole time off. We'll start again on the 8th. And that's actually what today is. And I'm normally I kind of listen to the podcast and, make sure it's not awful. And then post it. I kind of get a chance to go over it. Today it'll be finish it, wrap it up, post it. So you'll be hearing this as I hear it in a way. Okay, so today, what I was going to do, though, this is the New Year's show, and I was going to look back at 2013 and look forward to 2000, because there's a lot coming up in 2014. Over the last week, each of the surviving members, plus Jason Bonham, or each of the Celebration Day members, maybe we should start using that phrase, each of the Celebration Day members of Led Zeppelin have talked about new material, or somebody on their behalf has talked, in the case of John Paul Jones, I guess. I posted on January 1st, I posted a big post that covers all this ground. There's been a few comments and whatnot come out since. But suffice to say, we are probably getting this year 3 of the Led Zeppelin, 1, 2, and 3 of Led Zeppelin albums from the remasters. We are getting a Robert Plant Sensational Space Shifters album and full world tour. We are getting, it sounds like a Jimmy Page, it sounds like a reissue of some sort, possible. I don't know. That's a really good question. But he talked about archive material on his webpage on New Year's Day. John Paul Jones, we are getting Let me make sure I got it right. Minibus Pimps album featuring John Paul Jones. Did you hear about that one? Nobody seems to have heard about that one, or nobody seems to care, really. But it was posted on Twitter by... Yes, that's funny. I have all sorts of stuff written down, and that's the one thing I don't. I think I saved the tweet, though. So we'll look at the Weather Channel for... What am I doing? Looking at the Weather Channel. Oh, my goodness. Goodness gracious. Yes, here it is. It's from Death Prod, which is actually the site for Audio Virus LAB, which is a Swedish record company, I think. And I think I've had this discussion before. And they posted, it looks like a sticker, like an LP, goes on the outside of an album. It says, Minibus Pimps, John Paul Jones and Helga Sten, Cloud to the Ground. Limited edition, 180-gram vinyl cut from the original 2496 master. And the tweet says, literally coming up in 2014. So, on top of the opera, which the opera's due to be released this year, on top of that, it looks like a Minibus Pimps album. Now, it probably very limited edition. Whether you'd want to put the money into that probably is if you bought Lucifer Rising, you might be the kind of guy who buy this. Just because it's John Paul Jones. And that's not a critique, by the way. I bought Lucifer's Rising. And I will have to think about this just for the sake of having it, right? That is my sickness. And I know it's a lot of your sicknesses too. Don't you keep telling me that. So that's coming. And he's got the opera coming. Supposedly. Whether any of us will have any opportunity to hear the opera, if you live outside of London, obviously if you're in London at the time, you can pick up tickets, but operas aren't cheap, and if you're not a fan, it's an expensive run. But again, if you would buy the album, if you would buy the Minibus Pimps album, just because it has John Paul Jones, I suspect you'd go see his opera, wouldn't you? I would. I love opera. It's one of my little vices. I never told this story. Maybe I should tell the story. I went back to university in the 90s. I was working full time, and I was working heavy. I'm in the automotive industry. I was working 48 hours a week. I was working 6 days a week. I was working midnight shift. I had 2 young children. And if you wonder why I have no idea what's going on in the 90s musically, I just expelled it out, I think. And I was taking 2 courses a semester, 1 in the summer. And my last semester, and it was all, I want to say online, but it was mail, actually. They mailed you, they sent you tapes, and you listened to the lectures, and you got the books, and you did you mailed in or faxed in and the very last year they had set up an email program. Now it would be all email. There would be none of that stuff, right? And we're talking 10, 13 years ago, not that long ago. But anyway, I decided, I was almost out of kind of interesting courses to take. I'd taken the last that I needed for my major. And I was looking for a last course, and a couple that I checked in on or that I applied to, they weren't due in that semester. So I went in one day, and I just started going through the book. I was talking to her. Maybe I can do, because I work midnight shift, maybe I could do, something in the evenings before work. And I found a 3-hour intro. It was an intro to jazz at the exact same time as the documentary filmmaker. I was watching his baseball one, but the guy who did baseball, the Civil War, he did a jazz one. It was on TV at the time. So I thought the kind of music appreciation jazz would be an interesting one. It was full. So beside it was opera. So I said, well, I'll try that. And I'm not an opera fan. I've never liked opera, but it's in the back of my mind, it's something I always felt like, as a serious music, I like classical. I play classical guitar. I'm listening to jazz. Obviously, I'm a Led Zeppelin fan. As a serious music fan, opera is something I should like, but I don't. I have no time for it, like most of you. And I'm telling you, the first class, they talked a little bit about it. There was some discussion about the history, et cetera, et cetera. And then they put on like an act of Don Giovanni, Mozart's Don Giovanni. And I so hooked after it's sitting. Opera can't be listened to, right? It's got to be watched. I guess. And once you've watched it, then you can listen to an opera and kind of appreciate it. But it requires that first viewing before you really get what's going on. Anyway, it's like if you've listened to Tommy, if you've watched Tommy the movie and then listened to the album makes more sense, right? So anyway, so I came out of that. I absolutely love opera now. And it drives my family nuts because, I drag my wife to opera once a year, to an opera, just for the sake of going. She still doesn't get it. Sorry about that. It was my coffee. But anyway, so I would go. I would love the opera. I would be so into hearing what John Paul Jones has done with this opera. And I do, in my back of my mind, I contacted him about this Minibus Pimps album, his management, and got no response, the usual. I do intend on contacting them about an interview about the opera sometime over the course of the spring, I think. I expect to get no response, but it would be nice, and I would love to have that conversation with him and find out what's going on in it. And I have a number of questions about the particular opera he's chosen, etc., that I want to get at, but we'll see. But anyway, that's supposed to come as well in 2014. Did I mention Robert? Robert's been in this now. Last year at this time, we were talking about Robert having 2 albums in the can, a Band of Joy one and a Sensational Space Shifters one. I'm doing this backwards. I was going to do 2013 first, but anyway. So there was supposed to be 2 albums in the can for Robert, and then they never appeared. He just toured with Sensational Space Shifters. Something that happened mid-year, though, he talked about finding his big voice again, and I think I've mentioned this in the past couple of episodes. I think things changed over the course of the touring with this band. I think they got a little heavier. I think they got a little grittier. And grittier is maybe the better word than heavier. I think they've merged a bit, gelled a bit, but they are back in the studio, or have been over the course of the late fall, early winter, depending on how you want to call it. Late fall, I guess it technically is. They have been recording, and there is an actually interview about 2014 releases in Uncut magazine. It's currently on the shelves. If you have an iPad, it's in the news thing. And actually, you can preview it. You can preview it, and when you preview it, it shows you about 20 or 30 pages. The Robert Plant interview is in the... So if you have an iPad, download the Uncut app, and then preview. Just go into preview, and you can actually read the Robert Plant interview. But he talks about their recording in 3 different studios, and it almost sounds like they completely... We're using 2 studios for the album. Ashley Manor in Wiltshire, which belongs to Chris Hughes, who produced Fate of Nations and Your Eyes, and we're using Wood Room at Real Wood to get drum sounds and add Judith. So they're basically recording the band at Ashley Manor, and then the drums and Judith at his Riddy in Wood Room. And... it sounds like they're completely redoing the album, whether it's a case of the album new songs, or redoing the songs, or just adding some stuff to the songs. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they could be taking what they recorded last year and going, okay, let's pull out the guitar part and redo it. Let's leave the bass part and keyboard part in. That sort of thing. But, or they could be completely re-recording the songs, or they could have written, over the course of the summer, they may have written 20 new songs while they're on tour, which is not impossible, right? That you get a sound check and you go, somebody just starts jamming something, and you roll it. And, my wife's texting me and it's distracting me. I would have a hard time working in a real radio station because I get distracted too easily. But yeah, you get rolling in a sound check. Next thing you know, you've got a song. So they may have created a whole bunch of new songs. But there was supposed to be the 2013 2 albums, and he ended up doing all touring, no albums. And now this year he's talking also on this interview and about a tour. And of course, we talked last time about it looked like he was doing Europe. He's now saying, and I'm looking for the problem with the magazine apps in the iPad is you can't highlight stuff like you can in the book app. So otherwise I'd have this because I knew there were 3 or 4 things I wanted to highlight. About the album, we've been in the studio. We got 9 new tracks already. Lives outside. He talks about the members of the band. We all know who the members of the band are. It's the same band. Nobody's different. He basically talks about the comparison between sensational space shifters and strange sensation, with the drummer's skin gone and that sort of stuff, right? So he's making those little comparisons, and anyway, he mentions a tour, and he does say America's in there. He does say Europe. I think he says Asia and America. On our tour will go right through Europe, starting June 8th. Okay, June 8th they're going to hit the road, touring Europe, Russia, Japan, and the USA. And he says, I think, Robert Plant says here, I think we'll go through Glastonbury once or twice and disappoint everyone who thought I might be bringing other people with me. So, put that in the no Led Zeppelin reunion category, right? That's, remember he was saying he had nothing on for 2014? He has something on for 2014, and he just put that aside. And, which is good, which is the way I want him to do things. Just say it. Just say it's not happening, right? And with that comment, that should do it for the year. That should be the end of it. No discussion necessary, right? It's not happening. So anyway, look for a tour. Look for Robert Plant in a town near you. Like I say, he's going through Europe. Sounds like England, is going to get hit. If he's going through Glastonbury once or twice, what he means is England or, UK is going to get hit a bit too. And now there was some Japan dates. I don't think they're announced, but they kind of got, they got leaked, or what happens is they're not leaked so much as before Robert Plant officially announces his tour dates, places where he's playing are advertising the tour dates or posting it on their Twitter accounts, that sort of thing. Just book Robert Plant. So it's not a leak so much as it's being announced at the back end before it's being announced at the front end. So I call it unofficial until it's on Robert Plant's webpage, until Robert Plant's announced it. But it's technically it's on. It's hard to imagine that some promoters putting up a bunch of concerts that aren't going to happen. So I would say, if you've seen a Robert Plant date, it's probably on. And apparently this week some Japanese ones came up. And I wonder if I could find really fast what they were. Probably not, right? So that's Robert's year coming up. He's going to be on tour. He's going to be in a town near you. I'm going to try and catch him if I can. I'm going to try and interview him again. Because, those are people that answer my emails too. But I'll definitely try and catch him. But the last couple of times he's been through town, and it hasn't been convenient for me at all. It's been, I have something else that's kind of unchangeable on that night. And then there's my brother. My brother saw him last time at the Band of Joy, and we're sitting at Christmas talking about all this. And I never heard my brother quite go off like this. I'll never go see Robert Plant again with some fucking Band of fucking Joy. Holy fuck, that was crap. It was so funny. And then he starts going on about the Led Zeppelin reunion. I don't know why he just doesn't do Led Zeppelin. Well, obviously he doesn't want, get tied in. And I kind of did the Robert's defense thing. And he says, so the other guy should just fucking go out with some other singer. Who cares? Call it Led Zeppelin. Hit the road. I'm going to go see it. And everybody else is going to go see it. And everybody else is going to like it. There's no... And he goes off on this whole thing. And he's just a fan. He's just a music fan, right? He doesn't think too hard about this stuff. And that's the attitude. Oh, just go. Go on the road and friggin' tour and give people what they want before it's too late. It was an interesting perspective. But when he went and seen Band of Joy, I kind of was in the back of my mind thinking, he's not going to like that very much. But that was the first I'd heard that it was awful. So I'll go, but I wouldn't kill myself to go, because it's not Led Zeppelin and it's not Robert Plant that I love. It's what Robert Plant loves doing right now, which, as I've talked about before, I respect, but I have a hard time giving my money up for. Yeah. There's the dog moving for the one of 4 times today. The poor thing. Just this weather, it just gets up once in a while, shakes his head, and lies back down somewhere else. Anyway, so Jimmy talked about he's going to release an album, or he's going to release something from the archives, I believe was the quote. Music from the archives, quote unquote. In 2014. What does that mean? We don't know. Who knows? But the archives is a lot of people took that to mean Outrider, something that had been pre-released. If it's from the archives, it's pre-released. I disagree. For instance, Lucifer's Rising was from the archives, quote unquote. That would legitimately be from the archives. We all know, us fans know, Page years ago started, and when he was touring and stuff, played a thing called. Oh yeah, I know. There are people out there screaming at their computer right now. It's got embryo number 1, embryo number, and then there's embryo number 2, and we've heard some clips on his webpage over the last 2 years of just stuff from his, quote unquote, from his archives. But the embryo number 1 was how many years ago? 20 years ago. That's got to be considered archival. And so maybe he's, instead of a new album, maybe he's going to dig in and pull out all this stuff he's done through the years and polish it up and offer it out. That's a possibility. It's possible. By the archives, he means Outriders are getting a refresh, getting a reproduction, while he was in the studio with the Led Zeppelin stuff, they did that. I would love to see it get re-sung with new words. The biggest problem with that album, Jimmy Page's one solo effort, is completely ruined by horrible singers who don't know how to write a mature, intelligent lyric. But that's neither here nor there. But what about Coverdale Page? That's one that could really use an upgrading, I think. It sounds very 80s, and it's not best served. Page's sound is not best served with that 80s kind of heavy production stuff. I'd love to hear them pull back on the reverb and the production of that, and see what really lays in that music. Could also be the Firm. Who knows? But my guess is that it's a combination of the Outrider and. Do you know, I'm having one of those moments where I'm going, is that right? Is that called Outrider? You ever done that? Like you say something, you go, is that word even a word? I'm doing that right now with Jimmy Page Outrider, yeah. Just the mind is going, oh, that's not what the album's called. But yeah, so my guess would be Outrider with some outtakes thrown in. Maybe a disc of the same kind of thing as we're getting with the Zeppelin stuff. But that's just a guess. He really didn't say. He just said archives. But and it's worth mentioning. Jimmy Page has talked for the last 3 or 4 years about releasing something new. He's talked about having an album, a side of an album. This time last year we were talking about he was supposed to have a side of an album already done. And he was looking for people because he had pretty much done the remasters, he was looking for people to work with to finish the album. It's possible that's what he means, by the way, that he pulled up things like embryo number 1, and then now he's got it band in to polish it, right? And possible that's what he means. But I would think that's highly unlikely. But the warning is, it's been 3, 4 years, 5 years maybe, Jimmy Page has been talking about something new, and something new has not materialized. So because he's saying he's going to release archival material, doesn't mean he's going to release archival material. We were supposed to get Led Zeppelin material this year, and it didn't happen, right? It's off for this. It was supposed to be this year where they were releasing the remasters. Now it's 3 in 2014. And supposedly, remember in December of 2012, they were released to iTunes as remastered. So supposedly the remastering was done at that stage. So who knows what's going on. These guys are really slow sometimes. And then there's, but anyway, look forward to that with Jimmy. Plus, it's worth, the the 3 remasters we're getting. That's all coming out of Jimmy Page's efforts, really. And then there's Jason. Jason, towards the end of the year, worked with Glenn Hughes, got together with Glenn Hughes, and he was posted a lot, both Hughes and Jason, and Andrew Watts, who apparently is playing guitar / keyboard on this project. All were posting tweets. All were posting on Facebook. All were posting on the stupid picture app. Actually, Andrew Watts, if you follow along on Instagram, Andrew Watts is a guy who will eat 3 or 4 a day. He's one of those. Okay, stop posting now, pal. I want to see what my nieces are doing. You know what I mean? One of those people who seems to dominate it. Actually, so does Glenn Hughes. But anyway, so him and Hughes and Watts got together, apparently recorded something. Over between Christmas and New Year's, he actually, Jason posted on Facebook that he'd been listening to the mixes of his project with Hughes and Watts. And it sounds incredible, I think was the word he used. Can't wait until you hear it, sort of thing. He sounded excited by it. That sounds like it's coming out in 2014. Black Country Communion fell apart because Bonham and Hughes wanted to tour. Bonamassa didn't. Who knows where Sherinian is? Sherinian's kind of a working musician, so he probably would have gone or not gone, no big deal. Either way, right? So yeah, you got to assume a tour's in the works for that. I have heard absolutely nothing. Usually this time of year, we're getting into some Jason Bonham stuff. You remember last year in January was when I spent a couple of days with the guys in Jason Bonham. That's not in the works right now. I've heard nothing of that. So I'm assuming Bonham's concentrating right now on this new project, the whatever they're going to call it, Black Country Communion Mark II, as they do in Deep Purple. As Glenn Hughes was a Mark II guy in Deep Purple, right? Of course, they can't use Black Country Communion. Joe Bonamassa somehow controls that name and wouldn't let them continue with it. I'm guessing a tour would involve a lot of Black Country Communion songs, though, don't you think? Yeah, so that's coming. It certainly sounds like an album is coming. Nothing's confirmed there, but it certainly sounds like an album is coming. Certainly sounds like a possibility of a tour is coming as well. And if it's anything like Black Country Communion, I really enjoyed those 3 albums, and plus the live one. They were a solid band. And if Andrew Watts can pick up where Joe Bonamassa leaves off, Bonamassa's, the criticism of he's a little too clean, he's a little too tidy. If Watts can play like Bonamassa but be a little grittier, maybe you could have something. It'd be interesting to hear. Hughes is a very funky bass player. He's got a kind of a certain groove, and it's not unlike the Bonham groove. And I mean, both Bonhams kind of have that. Jason obviously picked up his dad's shuffly feel, right? But he can do that as good as anybody, really. So that's, I guess, what the 4 of them are. That's what you can look forward to. When the reissues will hit the stores, by the way, I have no idea. There was a rumor late January for the first album, or first 2 albums, actually. But it sounds like we're only getting 3 albums in 2014. So I'm guessing that's going to be spread out, and I'm guessing, I don't know, I'm guessing nothing that soon. If it's only going to be 3, I'm guessing latter half of the year, right? Because you could do one every 2 to 3 months. You could at least get 2, because it would make sense. If you're releasing one in January, then hit one in April for Record Store Day, right? 2 on Record Store Day with Whole Lotta Love as a single, as a Record Store Day release in April, then do one in August, and then hit 4, Led Zeppelin 4 on the shelves, all this new stuff at the end of November for Christmas release. Isn't that, if you were the marketing guy, isn't that what you would do? So the fact they're only doing 3 this year tells me it ain't happening early. that it's, and I get the idea, spread it out because, because I'm not made of money. Are you? You're not. Who is? Who's got? So if you drop it all at once, you're kind of putting people in a position where I got to make choices, or I got to find $800 or $700 now, or whatever, however it works. Whereas this way, it comes out, you can go out and get it, and okay, it's $70 for 2 discs plus LP plus whatever, right? Or you can buy just the LP for $35, or you can, et cetera, et cetera. But so you can do that, and then you got 3 months to kind of put together another $70 or $100, and then you got 3 months. So that's why you would spread it out, right? That makes perfect sense to me. But not having, like I said, the schedule I just gave you, boy, does that ever make sense, right? It's Led Zeppelin 2 for Record Store Day would be Led Zeppelin 1's. There's nothing on that that's, that's, and I guess they could find something to really release for Record Store Day, but I'm telling you, a Whole Lotta Love single for Record Store Day, they would own Record Store Day, don't you think? But anyway, I have my fingers crossed that something's hitting Record Store Day this April with the Led Zeppelin tag on it. That's my fingers crossed. Certainly there was some Yardbird stuff with Jimmy Page the last couple of Record Store Days, so I'm hoping for it. So anyway, I want to go back over 2013 briefly. And we're already at the half hour. I decided a long time ago, right off the bat, that I didn't care what the timing was in this. If it took me 2 hours to get through everything. But I could end now and call it a podcast, right? It's half an hour in. But anyway, but I made a bunch of notes. Basically went through rambleonradio.com, which you should do regularly, and made notes of the big stories. So here's where it goes. So. And I'm starting in April, and I think I'm all over the place is the problem, right? Let me find it. Here we go, 2013. Okay. Start with, by the way, December 2012, the Kennedy Center Honors. They went on Letterman. They released the end of 2012. They released Celebration Day. They were on Letterman. It was a lot of Led Zeppelin in the fall, late fall, early winter of 2012, right? The Kennedy Center Honors, which broadcast on Boxing Day, so almost at the end, a week from the end of the year, they broadcast that. It had the Jason Bonham Hart version of Stairway to Heaven, which would kind of dominate the Jason Bonham story for the next year in a way. They would release that to iTunes on January 15th. So 1 week from today, a year ago, they released the release of Stairway. It was later in the year they released the video. I would say August, September they released the video. But January 15th, they released the Hart, John Bonham, Stairway to Heaven. On January 16th, the next day, they won 2 Classic Rock Awards for Celebration Day, 2012's DVD of the Year, 2012 Best Live Album. And they're up for a couple of awards. Oh, they're up for Grammys this year. I think we talked about it last time, right? On the 22nd of January, Page and the John Variations. What the hell does that even mean? Oh, the John. Oh, do you like my handwriting or what, eh? Page and the John Variato's 2013 Spring Summer Collection Campaign. And I work for, I should tell this story. I work for Chrysler. And I kind of live in my own little world. I have my own, when you work in a big plant, you tend to have your own little world within it. And I don't wander too far afield. I come, I go. I go from where I work is a 3-minute walk to the cafeteria where I get coffees. And I'll walk up, get a coffee, walk back, and and I'm about another 2-minute walk to the door from there, straight up. And so I never pass the cafeteria. I go to the cafeteria, turn left, and I walk to the end of the plant, and I'm where I work. So I walked one day. I had to go to the office or something, get some paperwork done or something. And I'm walking past. I go past the cafeteria, and I'm walking along, and there's these ads for the John Variato's campaign because Chrysler 300 is part of the campaign. They have the Chrysler 300s, which we built. So they had these big black and white ads up along the wall, 1, 2, 3, 4. One of them with Jimmy Page in it. So it's my connection to look at me. connected to Jimmy Page. Ooh. Anyway, I just thought I didn't tell that story at the time. I kind of made a note of it and didn't, so there you go. In February, Celebration Day was released on vinyl. For some reason, this came out in Canada first, and I had it at the end of January. And there was stories of it quite, middle of January, when I went and seen Bonham in Toronto. I'm going to say it was January. It was the last week in January anyway. I picked it up that day. I went to the record store in Toronto, picked it up. No problems. They had tons of them. It wasn't an accident. The one across the road also had them. The Sunrise, if you know Toronto, HMV and Sunrise, both had it. So it was out in Toronto. It was way early. It was not supposed to be released until after Valentine's Day. It was actually supposed to be released before Christmas. Then it got pushed to early February. Then it got pushed to after Valentine's Day. Then it came out. Like I say, Canadian came out mid-January, but we do have January. We do have a February official release for the vinyl. February 10th, Jason Bonham and Led Zeppelin Experience. So February 10th is when I did, maybe it was February when they were here. February 10th is when I did my profile and review, quote unquote. It's the biggest piece I've ever done on the blog. It's magazine length, right? 3,000 words. I just point that out. Go look it up. If you haven't read it, it's fairly comprehensive look at the band as they were. Let's get us to April. April, Jason Bonham announces joint tour with Heart. April 3rd, Neil Preston's book Sound and Fury comes out. April 16th, Plant joins Paddy at a radio station, KUT 90.5 in Austin, and he sings Ohio. This is the first we've heard of Paddy's song Ohio, co-written and co-performed duet. Well, he does some harmony. He does harmonies on it, really. It's not a duet. But that's the first we hear of this song, Ohio. He ended up doing 3 songs on the album, of Paddy's album, recording and singing on. Although he doesn't front a song. On April 30th, John Paul Jones joined C6 Steve on Jules Holland Show, and he did some shows with him around that time. So much of May, I would say, was spent with C6 Steve for John Paul Jones. In June, Robert Plant does his North America tour. The movie Man of Steel is released. Jason is on the soundtrack. Oh, I'm going to go backwards. There you go. April 30th, Stephen LeBlanc is announced out of Led Zeppelin Experience for the purposes of the Heart Tour, which would become permanent, in large part because Steve's reaction to being out for the tour. I think he burned the bridge. Let's just say that. Although that was the last tour, they may not tour again. Like I said, nothing looks like it's coming this year. So it may be that it was just over. On April 30th, the Patty Griffith album, American Kid, was released. Again, I point out Plant sang on 3 songs. On May 4th, Led Zeppelin members met in London. This was presumably to talk about the reissues. Although it's possible beer was drunk or something along those lines. On May 7th, Bill Clinton tries to get Zeppelin. It's announced, it's talked about. We hear that Bill Clinton tried to get Zeppelin to play the Hurricane Sandy benefit. Jimmy Page's lawyers said no dice. Then we go to June, right? Robert Plant North American tour. Robert Plant Man of Steel released June 18th. Primal Scream song with Robert Plant on vocals, Elimination Blues, is released. So we actually have Robert singing on Patty Griffith songs, Primal Scream songs. He's all over the place, really. Plus he's touring, right? On August, Robert Plant's webpage updated. He joins Twitter and answers 10 questions for fans using the hashtag AskRP. And John Paul Jones played with Super Silent in Oslo. September 7th, page at the plaque gets put up at the Gladsack. September 7th was the 40th anniversary of the band's first show. 45th. 2012, 68, 2013, 60, 70, 80, 90, 45 years. the plaque was put up at the Gladsaxe Teens Club to commemorate that moment. On August 11th, Shades of Elvis appears. Robert Plant appears in photographer Christopher and somebody's book wearing Elvis sunglasses, and it's a book of people wearing Elvis's sunglasses, stars, celebrities, that sort of thing. Different pictures of them in different pairs of Elvis's sunglasses. On August 20, Robert Plant turns 65. On August 28th, he begins a tour of England. Also on August 28th, John Paul Jones hosts the Polar Music Prize's Meet the Laureates interview. So he sat down and for half an hour, 40 minutes, talked with the winners, this year's winners of the Polar Music Prize, and Led Zeppelin won that prize a couple of years back, so that's why Jones was asked to do it. Then I go back. September 7th, Gladsaxe Club. September 18th, and here is the video of Jason and Hart's version of Stairway to Heaven was released on iTunes. November 7th, Robert Plant, A Life is released. Reviewed it here a number of podcasts ago. On November 11th, part 1 of Zerka, Plant's Travels to Mali, which finished up over Christmas holidays, and I haven't really talked about it, and I don't know if I will, but I'm going to try. I'm going to kind of try and spend an hour going through the entire thing in the next little while, sometime in the next couple of days, and then I will broadcast my thoughts. How's that sound? November 20-ish to 30-ish, John Paul Jones tours with, and I don't have the exact dates, I'm sorry, but he toured with the Dave Rollins Machine. Featuring Dave Rollins, Gillian Welsh, Paul Covert, and Willie Watson, as well as John Paul Jones. They did play Going to California on that. Jones plays mandolin through the entire thing, and sounds good. They actually sound pretty good. They're a bluegrassy band. It's either your thing or not, I guess. I don't mind. There's a bit of grit to them, which I always like in almost all my music, a bit of grit to it, you know. December 4th, there's a Burt Jansk tribute concert. Robert Plant is there and honors Jansk. Surprisingly, Jimmy Page isn't. Jimmy Page is the big Burt Jansk influence guy, but he's not there. Robert Plant is and performs. December 8th, Kashmir nominated for Grammy for Best Rock Performance. And December 12th, Led Zeppelin went streaming on Spotify. And that was 2013 in the world of Led Zeppelin. Late 2012, 2013. 2014 promises to be a very busy year for Led Zeppelin. For the guys in the band, anyway. And even for the band themselves in terms of the re-releases. Do not anticipate live performances by the band, but otherwise, save your money, kids, because they're coming at you with stuff to buy. Whether it's Robert Plant tour tickets, John Paul Jones opera tickets, that album from Minibus Pimps, I bet you it's not going to be a cheap one because it's a collector type thing. Jimmy's going to be releasing some stuff, plus the Jason Bonham, the reissues. There's a lot coming at you. You could probably, if you're not careful, spend a solid $1,000 this year on Led Zeppelin material. You think? Throw in a couple of concert tickets. Reissues, maybe $500-600 anyway. How's that sound? That's a lot of money. And if we all do it, they're making a lot of money, you know. Anyway, that's all there is to it. I'm going to wrap here before I say something silly. This has been Ramble on Radio, episode number 42, the only Led Zeppelin podcast. Be sure to listen to me on Spreaker. Look for me on iTunes. Review it on iTunes. Go to I Am Brian, damn it, on YouTube. I'm terrible at this. By the way, if you ever see a guy called I Am Brian Dammit on the internet, it is me. Music sites, whatever. I have used it since Napster was when I came up with that one. I was trying to come up with a username for Napster, and it would not accept anything. And I was trying to work on something variation of Brian, and I got so frustrated. I typed, "Oh yeah, Brian, damn it," and that was good. And I have used it ever since. It's my Twitter handle. It is now I have a Ramble on Radio Twitter handle, which I would rather, if you're listening to me for Led Zeppelin, that's a better bet. But I do have, I Am Brian Dammit as a Twitter handle. I Am Brian Dammit is on various websites and whatnot. If you see me, say hi. And you can say, so I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube and on, I mentioned Spreaker, SoundCloud. I'm on SoundCloud as well. You can listen to the most recent editions of the podcast on SoundCloud. Tell your friends, post on Facebook, join the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group. And I will talk to you this time next week. You have a good week. Bye. Page, it sounds like a reissue of some sort. Possible, I don't know. That's a really good question. But he talked about archive material on his webpage on New Year's Day. John Paul Jones, we are getting... let me make sure I got it right. Minibus Pimps album featuring John Paul Jones. Did you hear about that one? Nobody seems to have heard about that one, or nobody seems to care, really. But it was posted on Twitter by... That's funny. I have all sorts of stuff written down, and that's the one thing I don't. I think I saved the tweet, though. So we'll look at the Weather Channel for... What am I doing? Looking at the Weather Channel. Oh my goodness. Goodness gracious. Yes, here it is. It's from Death Prod, which is actually the site for Audio Virus LAB, which is a Swedish record company, I think. And I think I've had this discussion before. And they posted a podcast and make sure it's not awful. And then post it. I kind of get a chance to go over it. Today it'll be finish it, wrap it up, post it. So you'll be hearing this as I hear it in a way. Okay, so today, what I was going to do, though, this is the New Year's show, and I was going to look back at 2013 and look forward to 2000, because there's a lot coming up in 2014. Over the last week, each of the surviving members, plus Jason Bonham, or each of the Celebration Day members, maybe we should start using that phrase, each of the Celebration Day members of Led Zeppelin have talked about new material, or somebody on their behalf has talked, in the case of John Paul Jones, I guess. I posted on January 1st, I posted a big post that covers all this ground. There's been a few comments and whatnot come out since. But suffice to say, we are probably getting this year 3 of the Led Zeppelin, 1, 2, and 3 of Led Zeppelin albums from the remasters. We are getting a Robert Plant Sensational Space Shifters album and full world tour. We are getting, it sounds like a Jimmy book. Write a review on iTunes, etc., etc. I'm looking forward to 2014. One of my resolutions is promote this thing, get this blog, get this podcast into the next level. Anyway, to the next, to promote it better. How's that? So good start. Hey. So the plan was I was going to do a Christmas Day. Well, I wasn't going to sit on Christmas Day and podcast, but I was going to do one for Christmas Day. Then I got a notice a couple days. If you're following me on Twitter, you'll know I got a notice a couple days before from iTunes saying basically they're doing system maintenance. There'll be nothing between the 24th and the 28th. So if I posted it, you wouldn't be hearing it anyway. Most of the people who listen to this listen to it on iTunes, as far as I can tell. So that's, so I said, well, then why, I'm busy. Why force myself to do something that, is not going to happen anyway. And then the plan was a January 1st one, but between, we had a big ice storm up here on like December 23rd. And while we were fine where I am, my wife's immediate family particularly got hit really hard with power outages for 3-4 days, 2 different families there. So we had a lot of people around. We threw a lot of dinners. Every Christmas dinner, there was Christmas Eve is kind of a traditional. It got bigger than normal because people came from out of town that don't normally. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, threw a dinner. Plus we had a big New Year's dinner. And the New Year's dinner, you can see. If you follow me on Facebook, you know the picture. I was dressed to the nines, 1920s style. And I don't mean gangster. I mean, white tie. And I'm using that as my podcast picture today. So you'll see it. You just look at on your phone or whatever, and you'll see the picture. But in between, it was 2 days of cooking. So I just kind of thought, you know what? I'm take the whole time off. We'll start again on the 8th, and that's actually what today is. And normally I kind of listen to the podcast. I say what? Ho, Led Zeppelin fans, this is Brian, call me Cole Gardner, coming to you from Ice Station Zeppelin in scenic Casper, Ontario. You are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode number 42, the only Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. You can listen to me, you can subscribe on iTunes, you can go to Podbeam, look me up, you can go to Spreaker and listen to me there, and of course, SoundCloud. We're up on SoundCloud, and as well, the audio also goes to YouTube. Look for I Am Brian, damn it, on YouTube. And I finally got a little downtime, and I'm catching up on a million little jobs, not the least of which is shoveling the driveway. I'm going to try and get those YouTube stuff sorted out so that it all merges to the Ramble On Radio account, and la-di-da-da-da, or I can get it over there in a timely fashion thereafter or something. But anyway, if you look for I Am Brian, damn it, it's on YouTube. Tell your friends, subscribe, post to the Facebook.